Nasman in Washington, and this is BBC World News America. The United Nations Security Council passes a resolution to bring more aid into Gaza, but stops short of calling for an immediate truce.
This was tough, but we got there.
A humanitarian ceasefire is the only way to begin to meet the desperate needs of people in Gaza and end their ongoing nightmare.
Police in Prague released body cam footage from Thursday's deadly mass shooting. And the man who spent 48 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit fights for compensation. Welcome to World News America. I'm Carl Nasman. After days of delay and diplomatic wrangling, the UN Security Council has approved a resolution aimed at getting more aid into Gaza. Now, in the end, 13 countries voted for that resolution, but its passage was only sealed when the US and Russia chose not to exercise their veto power and instead abstained. To get the U.S. on board, the resolution uses milder language than previous versions. It does call for the, quote, safe and unhindered delivery of humanitarian assistance at scale to Gaza, but it does not demand an immediate end to the fighting. Instead, the resolution calls for the creation of, quote, conditions for a sustainable cessation of hostilities. Here's what the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said after that vote. All right, let's get more now. With me in studio, our diplomatic correspondent, Barbara Plett-Usher. Thank you for being here. This took days to get this resolution done, finally passed. Walk us through what's in this resolution and what isn't. What are your takeaways here? All right, Barbara Plett-Usher, our diplomatic correspondent. Thank you very much. Well, in Gaza itself, the Hamas-run health authorities say more than 20,000 people have been killed by Israeli forces, and it emerged today another Israeli hostage being held by Hamas was also reported to have died in captivity. Our Middle East correspondent, Lucy Williamson, reports now from Jerusalem. That report from earlier this week. Now, police in the Czech Republic say the gunman who killed 14 people at a university in Prague on Thursday and wounded another 25 killed himself after seeing that police were encircling him from all directions. All those who died have now been identified. The first to be publicly named is Lenka Lavkova, who was the head of the university's music department. Police released body cam video of officers during the operation. Officials said the time between receiving the first emergency call and officers stepping into the building was 4 minutes. Our Eastern Europe correspondent Sarah Rainsford reports now from Prague. An Oklahoma man who served the longest wrongful imprisonment in U.S. history is now free and says it was a lesson in resilience and tenacity. Glenn Simmons, who was jailed in 1974 and was only freed last year when a court ordered he should have a new trial. Prosecutors now say there isn't enough evidence to warrant one, and he's been formally declared innocent. We spoke to a local reporter in Oklahoma, Allie Meyer, about what she uncovered while investigating his case. U.S. President Joe Biden has widened his pardon for Americans with federal criminal convictions for marijuana offenses. The White House granted clemency to those who were convicted of simple possession and using cannabis on federal land and in the District of Columbia. Thousands of people are now expected to be eligible for the pardons. In a statement, President Biden said his actions would help make the, quote, promise of equal justice a reality. He went on to say criminal records for marijuana use and possession have imposed needless barriers to employment, housing, and educational opportunities. Too many lives have been upended because of our failed approach to marijuana. It's time that we right those wrongs. Now, Black Americans are almost 4 times more likely than white Americans to be arrested and convicted for marijuana possession, despite similar usage rates. Several states have legalized the production, distribution, and medical or recreational use of cannabis, and President Biden has repeated his call on governors and state legislators to take similar steps to erase marijuana convictions within their borders. All right, let's take a look now at some important news making headlines around the world. The U.S. Supreme Court has declined for now to decide whether former President Donald Trump has immunity from prosecution for allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 election. Special counsel Jack Smith had asked the U.S. top court to fast-track a decision on the case. The court's decision paves the way for a lower court to rule first on whether Trump can be prosecuted. China's air pollution in 2023 worsened for the first time in a decade, according to a study released on Friday. A Finnish institute found the national average of air pollution increased compared to 2013 levels. That's the year when Beijing declared a war on pollution and introduced measures which saw air quality improve. The Swiss government says it will introduce a global minimum tax rate of 15% for multinational corporations starting next year. The tax rate is meant to prevent the loss of tax revenue to other countries. Even with the increase, Switzerland will still have one of the lowest corporate tax levels in the world. American actor Charlie Sheen was allegedly assaulted at his home on Wednesday by a woman with a deadly weapon. Paramedics were reportedly called. Mr. Sheen was not taken to the hospital. The suspect is his neighbor. All right, one last story before we go. A mysterious pair of rare gold sneakers, you see them right there, donated to a homeless shelter in Portland, Oregon. Well, they've been sold for more than $50,000 at auction. The shoes were found at the bottom of a donation bin earlier this year. The head of the shelter said she assumed that the shoes were fake, but she took them to authenticators who told her that they were one of the few original pairs that Nike made back in 2019. They were never released to the public. One of the few people to get one, director Spike Lee. Apparently, though, those were 12.5. Spike Lee wears a 9.5. I'm Carl Nasman. Thank you so much for watching World News America.
Hello. Storm Pier has been bringing some significant disruption